So I just went to a car show, and when I got there, I saw what I thought was a Grabber Orange Mach 1 Mustang, or just a fastback Mustang. And as I got closer, I couldn't believe my eyes. It was an actual Boss 429 Mustang, a 1970 Boss 429. So we'll do a little walk around here of the car, and there are a couple really neat little stories about this car that I'll share with you that are really cool. But here you can see the car is in phenomenal shape. It's a low mile car. I believe it had 19,000 miles or 29,000 miles, something like that. It was very low mile for what it was. And this was also a later built car. He said, I believe it was number 401 out of the 499 that were built for 1970. There were a lot more 69 Boss 429s made than there were 1970s. And I don't remember if it was 401 or something like that, but it was in the 400s. So really cool to see, and something that a lot of people won't get to see is this book that he had, and I thought I'd share this. I tried to take a picture of every page. I noticed there was a restoration going on here of at least the engine, and in the first shot there, the Boss 429 font on the front fender there was not correct, and so I wondered if it was really a Boss 429 car, but he did show me the CarCraft plaque on the door on the inside, and it is a actual genuine Boss 429 car. And he had told me that it actually started out as a promotional car, so I thought that was pretty neat. And these are the pictures of the car just that he had in this thing. I love the soda can in the intake there. It shows how big those heads are and how much air those suck in. I thought that was such a cool picture, very classic. I have a similar picture of the throttle body for my Terminator with the GT500 throttle body, how a can of soda fits in there too. So really neat pictures, and I think this is something that a lot of people will never get to see, so I tried to take that video. And I talked to him about when you build the engines on these cars. I had heard that all those O-rings in the heads have to be put in with silicone, and he confirmed that with me and said they're really difficult to put together and get right. It's not just a head gasket that goes on there. You have to individually put every O-ring in there, and they all have to seal perfectly. Otherwise, you've got to take it off and do it all over again. So it was fun to talk to someone who owns a Boss 429, who's worked on them. He's owned this car for a very, very long time. Said it started out as a promotional car, actually, and then he got it from a friend. And I wanted to look at the strut towers. I had him show me how CarCraft had to modify these strut towers. You can see they're kind of dented in there to fit or shoehorn the Boss 429 engine. And at the bottom there, I tried to get a video of the plate. At the bottom there, you can see that they have welded in a plate on the bottom side of the strut towers where they had to cut them up. And that was done by CarCraft when they made these cars. So that is really cool to see, and it's really neat to see a authentic Boss 429. Now the story gets really interesting for two more reasons. My wife's cousin lives up in northern Utah where this car is from, and he's into Mustangs, and he has a really nice 65 convertible he's restoring. Beautiful car. And he and I would talk Mustangs when we go up for family reunions and things like that. And this cousin had said, hey, you should come see this guy's Boss 429. He has a real orange Boss 429 with low miles. And I thought, oh, that would be really cool. Our schedules had never lined up to do so. I've contacted him when I'd be up in northern Utah, and then back and forth. It just never worked out. I tried to give him notice, but either the owner of the car wasn't there, or we couldn't make it, or whatever it was. But all I knew about the guy was that he was an older gentleman, and that he was an ordnance worker who volunteered inside the Salt Lake City Temple. So I was assuming that it was a Calypso Coral, the kind of more red or orange Boss 429. It was low miles, and that was who that person was. So when I brought it up to the owner of this car, he said, oh, well, I would know him because I also worked in the Salt Lake City Temple. And I thought, well, there can't be two people with Boss 429s who work in the Salt Lake City Temple. That's just a very rare coincidence. And so we got to talking and figured out that he is the guy my cousin knows, and I was going to be able to go see this car when I was in northern Utah. And so now I got to see the car that I've been hearing so much about. Now, the second thing that was really neat was when I was a younger boy, 7 to 10 years old, somewhere around there, I loved the Boss 429, and I still have this model car. I used to carry this around with me everywhere. This was my favorite toy. It was my favorite car. This was before the New Edge Mustangs were around, so this was my favorite Mustang back then. And I went to a local small town car show, very, very small car show, and I actually saw a Boss 429 there at the show. So I was telling the guy who owned this car about that experience because it was the only time I'd ever seen a Boss 429 until I went down to the muscle cars at the strip recently that you may have seen with the barn find one. And I told him I had a Boss 429 model. I loved him so much. I saw one at a car show and I was jealous because I saw kids sitting in the trunk of it at the car show, and I thought they were so lucky, and I wish I could have been involved with that Boss 429. And then he confirmed my story and said, "This is the car you saw at that small car show because I have entered this car in that show. I used to go to that show, and we both agreed it must have been around the year 1994 or somewhere around then because I bought a tie pin that had a Mustang with 94 on the bottom." And he said, those kids were not supposed to be in the trunk of the car, and he was very upset with them because those kids belonged to the person who was next to him showing a different car, and he left to go get a drink or something and came back, and those kids had climbed into the trunk of his Boss, and they had their legs out the back and they were kicking the back of his car, and he was furious about it, and I would have been too. So not only did that confirm my story, but this was really cool for me to know that this is the car I saw when I was 9 or 10 years old at a car show, and I had never seen it since. And I was really excited to figure that out and talk with him. So he was a really nice guy. We got along really well. It was so cool to see this car, and you just don't get to see these very much. So I thought that was a really interesting story, and it was really fun to see this car. And at the show, my friend was also there, and he was showing his Whipple Terminator Cobra. So I'll show you a little footage of that car right here. A very nice 17,000 mile Terminator Cobra, and it's got a 2.9 Whipple on it on E85, and just a really cool, beautiful low mile car. He just added the Whistler wheels, and it's as you can see, dark shadow gray with the medium graphite inserts on the seats. So really nice car, really good show, a lot of fun, and I just wanted to share that. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and stay tuned for more Mustang content.